Reese, welcome to the Building Her podcast. I'm so excited that you're here. For anyone listening, two moms getting their schedules together and their babies healthy to make this happen is quite complicated. This is the third attempt over here, but we're sitting here and we're doing it. So
We
I'm
made
very,
it
very
happen.
excited.
We made it happen.
I know. I'm very, very excited that you're here. I met you when I was in Miami or Fort Lauderdale for the top tier immersion, the mastermind that I was in. And you had spoken, you were on the panel, and you talked about motherhood and business. And my ears perked up because I'm a new mom. She's 15 months tomorrow. And so everything that you said just resonated with me so much because now that I'm on the other side and I'm in motherhood, I'm like, oh my gosh, like people really don't get it in terms of the time that it takes and the commitment and the sacrifice and all the things that we could go on and on about. The number one question that I get myself now is how do you do both, right? How do you be a mom and how do you have a successful business and how do you run it and how do you operate it? So I wanted to ask you that question because I think you have two kids and they're a bit older than
Four
mine.
and five now.
4 and 5.
Yeah.
So you're much more evolved into the motherhood chapter. So I'd love to hear it from you. What's the advice that you give in terms of doing both? You get to be a mom and run a business.
hmm I think one of the things that really helped me now as a mom is one of the things that even helped me when I was first getting started with my business was I was able to see which tasks were repetitive or which tasks I didn't need to be doing and either outsource that, delegate that, automate that so that I could be in my zone of genius. So when I first started Yes Supply, I was just sharing things that like lit me up in my life or mindset or things that empowered me. And I realized, as people were reaching out to me saying, like, Reese, this is changing my life. This is helping me quit a job I don't like or get out of a toxic relationship or whatever. I realized it's not greedy for me to want to make money from this. It's actually my duty because I'm helping people. And if I can help people just a couple hours after work as I grind and post content, imagine how many people I could help if I was able to do this full time. So I think when we release feeling like it's greedy to make money and we realize it's our duty because we can do more of what's helping people, it helps a lot. And so every time I noticed I was doing something that was repetitive or outside of my zone of genius, I delegated that out. So one of the first roles that I gave out was customer service because I realized I was answering the same like I lost my email. Like, what's my password? Like I was becoming a robot essentially answering the same question over and over again. So I outsourced that and that helped me eventually outsource the web development and IT and video editing and all the things. And so now as a mom, I feel like my most important job is actually raising my kids. And of course, with what I do with Yes Supply, coaching my clients and creating content and everything that's outside of either working with my clients or creating a course or creating content and marketing, all of that needs to be delegated.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I was not like that when I first became a mom because I mean, my bread and butter is one-on-one coaching and then group programs as well. And so I would say it's less customer service and things like that. But the delegation and the way my business was structured was not in a place to be, let's call it ready to have kids. So I kind of had to learn postpartum, like,
hmm
month 3, month 4, month 5. I was like, whoa, my mat leave is over. How do I do this? How do I return?
Yeah.
I love what you said about money. It's not greedy, it's my duty. That was so powerful, and I could not agree more. I think there's still women that I know, and I'm sure you know yourself, in terms of feeling like it is still greedy. It is, they haven't made that connection yet. What would you say to them? What advice would you offer in terms of money reframes or just different ways to look at it, or even how to get there?
hmm I would say think of who you've seen be successful and how that showed you proof of what was possible and realize that you can be that for someone else. So, like an example from my life is when I grew up being like a woman of color, a person of color, I never saw anyone who looked like me as the main character of the movie. They were, like, always the sidekick or whatever. I didn't see that many examples of success, and even when I got into coaching, I didn't really see anyone in personal development outside of, like, Oprah or Lisa Nichols. But I remember hearing Lisa Nichols' story. So her story is that she, had a little baby, and she didn't even have enough money to buy diapers for her baby, but she figured it out and then went on to start a multi-million dollar coaching business. And so seeing what she did, I was like, well, if Lisa could do it and she was in a worse situation than me, then I can do it too. And so over the years, I've had so many women reach out to me who are either women of color or maybe they speak a different language or they are self-conscious because they have an accent and they're worried like, can I run my business in English even if I have an accent? And they reach out to me and they say, Reese, because I saw you do this, it made me realize that I could do this as well. And so for everyone who's listening, you whether you look like me or not, you all have something that makes you unique that you might think is a flaw or a setback that can actually be your strength. And so it's not greedy for you to go and make $1 million. You actually show other people who might think, oh, I can't because I don't have a degree, or I can't because of this and that. You show them what's possible. And then we essentially change the consciousness so everyone knows that abundance is available to them. And I saw a stat the other day that was like 50% of women have the wealth in the world, but only 2% of women get money from investors if they're investing to start a business. And so it's so interesting that there's still so many blocks for women to, rise up in business and rise up in success and abundance. And so, like when you think you're making more or you're greedy or whatever, like we're still just scratching the surface of what's possible for us. So
Yeah.
having like too much is relative.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like we're just getting started over here.
Yeah, exactly.
Females in business, which is very exciting. I love that you just mentioned actually your experience a little bit being a person of color. I really resonate with that in terms of my daughter. She's mixed.
Oh
My
yeah.
my husband is Black American, I'm white European, and so it's so interesting. People already look and they're like, "Oh, like you're her mom." And I'm like, "Yes, yes, I am. She's mixed. She's biracial." And I just look to people like you to pave the way for her, you know? I obviously am going to do what I need to do for her, but having those examples is really important. I think with what you just said, seeing people like Oprah and Lisa Nichols, it showed you what was possible and it
Mhm.
was very inspiring. I agree. Anyone that is tall like me or looks like me or any kind of, resemblance, I'm like, ooh, what is she doing? And it just gives me more permission to do the
Yeah, me and
same.
you are both tall.
I
We're like the
know.
tallest ones in the
I
room.
saw you. I was like, oh my gosh, instant connection. But I often find, especially with my clients, and to your point, you just said there's still so many blocks that we women have. I tend to see people fall into the comparison trap much more quickly than looking at it from a place of possibility. Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
everything from Instagram following, from reels popping off. Like if a woman is winning, we tend to tear down. We tend to be like, oh, well, I'm not like her. Like, what is she doing that I'm not doing? It's like a competitive nature versus looking at it like, you go, girl, and now you're paving the way for me. And now that's giving me permission to do the same. Why do you think we fall into that much more easily and quickly
Mhm.
as women, as females?
Yeah, it's definitely part of our consciousness. I don't know if this is necessarily for females, but I used to have an assistant who worked with me on my team, and she went to school for economics. And she was like, Reese, everything that you're saying is so mind blowing. Because when she went to school, they told her that wealth, the money available to us, is like a pie chart. So there's like 100% of the pie. And if this person gets 50, then there's only 50% less. If this person gets 30, you only get 20, and it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So if someone's taught that the amount of money or success available is finite, and if she gets it, then you can't get it, it makes sense why there's that competitive nature because it's survival, right? Like, are you gonna eat dinner or am I gonna eat dinner? But how I see money and what I realize is that they are literally printing trillions and trillions of dollars every
Mhm.
like day, every second. And money, in my opinion, is more of an idea than a tangible asset. So when you think about it, like they're printing more and more money every day. Pretty much every single country is millions or billions of dollars in debt. What does that tell you? If all these countries are in debt, but they're still operating and they're still doing business and they're still doing all the crazy things that they're doing, we won't get into that. But you know what I mean? Like if they can afford to do that while they're billions of dollars in debt, it tells me that money isn't a piece of paper or a stack of gold. Money is an idea. And so it doesn't matter if she has more or he has more. It really is about, well, what is your idea of yourself? How do you bring ideas to the table that can bring value? Because when you see that money is simply an exchange of value based on the idea that you have of yourself or the idea that you have of your product, when you convince other people of that same idea, so they're trading you in business, that's how you earn money.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos has more, they have more than me. It matters if I have a idea that I can bring value and show someone else I can bring value, let's exchange it for money.
Mhm.
And that's
Yeah.
it. It doesn't matter what anyone else is doing.
Mm-mm. 100%. I had no idea that in economics they teach you money is like a pie. Like, of course, that's going to create competition. Are you kidding? I
Yeah,
want my
yeah.
slice.
Exactly, exactly. And I'm sure different schools and universities are different, but that's what
Yeah.
her experience was.
Yeah. No, that's insane. I agree with you. I had to do a lot of money mindset work as I entered entrepreneurship 5, 6 years ago, where I did have to understand and learn, oh, money is limitless. I mean, before we used to say printing paper, but now I say it's a series of numbers. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yes,
not backed by anything. It's truly
exactly.
made up. I think of Bitcoin and all the stages of money that I've even been able to witness now in my 34 years. It's just insane.
Mhm.
Um,
And then also too, sometimes we think we need money in order to get an experience, but
mm,
sometimes the value that you bring can bring you an experience. I remember early in my career, I got invited to a retreat in Nicaragua, and I was like swimming in the pool, and I was kind of visualizing like what would it be like if this was my house and this was my pool, whatever. And then on one of the last days, the owner was like, hey, if you want to create content for this space, you can come back and you can stay here as long as you want. I didn't end up doing it, but it's funny because if I wanted to, I could have just brought value and got the experience that I wanted
mhm,
anyway, right? So
mhm.
sometimes money doesn't even have to be a barrier. You can just have the experience or the outcome that you want.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a good example. I think also you were talking about investors and investments for women, and only 2% actually receive those investments. I think it's interesting because the biggest objection I get when I'm on consultation calls is, oh, I don't have enough money or I don't have the money for it. And while that may be true on paper, I think it's interesting how we view money in that way, and that's like the most accepted objection, because if you think about someone investing into your company, they have nothing to go off of but you and your idea,
So
right? Like
true.
like there's no evidence or proof that this thing will be successful. It's just my idea and hyping it up, and I have a good ass story
Yeah.
to sell you on this idea for you to give me lots of money in
Millions of dollars.
return.
Yeah.
It's crazy, but it's like we don't think like that. And I get from upbringing, and if you were in the regular school system, and I guess you if you went to this economics class, it's like I get it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you get to unlearn a lot of this stuff too. What do you think is it kind of ties to AI, because we talk about the future of entrepreneurship, and then we talk about AI, and then we talk about, well, money's going to be obsolete one day because AI is going to take over. What's your take on all of that?
I haven't heard the concept that money is gonna be obsolete because you're gonna have to educate me on that one.
Just it was quick. It was from
just
what's
like
his name?
blowing my mind, like out of the
I know. I
mine
think
too.
it's a tech billionaire, Jeff Teal. Does that sound
Or is it Peter Thiel?
Peter
The
Field? Yeah, yeah,
creator
yeah,
of PayPal? Yeah, I read his book, like, a long time ago.
yeah. So he talked about it and he was like, AI is going to replace the basic jobs, right? Like the
Mhm.
ones that doesn't really have a lot of creativity. It's kind of like clock in, clock out, your 9 to 5s.
Yeah.
So if there's enough of those jobs that get replaced, what is the value of money, right? What is the place of money? Because usually it's an exchange of some kind of job. We're talking about value. And so if that value is replaced, essentially, that humans give by AI, it changes the whole dynamic of money. What do you think?
Huh. I haven't heard like, I've
Challenge
heard
it,
that.
challenge it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I heard well, I don't know if I could challenge it. I think I need to
Ah.
research it a bit, but, like, I do agree that AI could potentially take a lot of the more repetitive tasks and more repetitive jobs, and
Mhm.
then to what you're saying, but there's still money, like,
Yeah.
maybe if everyone who works, like, an admin job, they lose their job, but
Mhm.
what about, like, the business owners or investors or real like, how are people has he said, like, how people are gonna exchange if we don't have money? Just like
Um,
friendship?
no, kind of like everyone would get like a paycheck, but it's not connected to work. So it's
Oh,
just kind of
like a
like
social credit system type of thing? Oh,
totally.
yeah. Well,
Yes. Yeah.
that scares me. But
Same, same.
and then the digital ID and all of that stuff. Oh,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That kinda scares me. But yeah, in terms of, like, at the first idea of like AI taking the more repetitive jobs,
Mhm.
I can see that obviously taking away from many people because, someone who has their comfortable repetitive job that might be replaced. So I
Right.
do see the negatives and I do see the drawbacks, but I do
Mhm.
I do also see the positives, maybe because I'm very creative and I like the easiest thing for me to talk about is ideas and that type of thing. I
Mhm.
think that where AI might take things that are more repetitive away from us. Hopefully, ideally, it actually gives us more space to do the
Mhm.
things that only humans can do. So think
Yeah.
of new ideas, innovate, be creative. Maybe we get off our phones and get back to doing more things in person when we're collaborating. Like if there's an AI that will come like fold my laundry for me, like I'll take it, right? So like what we are talking about earlier in this conversation, I've always been for releasing the repetitive, monotonous tasks that aren't allowing us to fulfill our potential. Because if you have space to think because you're not doing the repetitive thing, imagine what incredible ideas you could actually come up with.
Mhm. I couldn't
That
agree
being
more.
said, digital ID and tracking my iris and my fingerprint and everything that I do or say everywhere I go, that surveillance scares me. So
Mhm.
it depends how far on the spectrum we're talking now.
I know. I mean, there's so many rabbit holes I've been down, and the
Yeah.
Diary of a CEO has had a few people on there where I'm just like, I don't even want to listen to this anymore. Because when they
Yeah.
talk about the future of AI, it does seem much more doomsday.
Yeah.
But the one thing I'll say, because everyone's like, they're going to take our jobs, whatever. But it's like, but then what you just mentioned, there's going to be new jobs or there's going to be
Yeah.
new things that people create. And, we have imaginations and like it's actually exciting to me to see how the world might change because also even if we're talking about technology and you being a mom and me being a mom, I want to make sure that my daughter is not always on an iPhone, an iPad, or whatever, and actually in the world learning. And so it's like, I think the younger generations are actually going to crave community and getting out there and not just being at home, not just being on phones and computers. There's a guy in Japan, I just made a reel about it. He gets paid to go on walks with people. Like,
Mhm.
what?
I
That's
heard of
insane.
that.
That's a new job,
Yeah.
So I think we really need to view it from a place of And you and I are the same way in terms of optimism and possibility and abundance, not focusing on what's going away or what's
Mhm.
changing.
And I could see why there's a need for that because if for the last decade or 15 years, everyone's just been on their phone. They forget how to socialize. They forget how to be like, "Hi, nice to meet you. Let's be friends." So now you need to pay for someone to go for a
Totally.
walk with you. Not that's a big reason why I'm currently homeschooling my kids because I remember disliking so many aspects of school. I remember feeling trapped inside, doing the same math questionnaire over and over again, looking outside and it's beautiful and it's sunny and it's like, I just want to be out there and living my life instead of remembering like who such and such was from like 1783. And it's funny because it's like we had to memorize all of these facts of like September 2nd, 1629. And, our teachers would say, you're not going to be walking around with a calculator in your pocket. And it's like, no, we don't have a calculator in our pocket. We have a literal supercomputer with AI in our pocket. So our kids don't necessarily need they should know like, in general the eras and things that happen, but I don't think they need to remember all those little tiny, like, monotonous details when they can have their personal assistant to do that for them, to memorize things for them, or to, calculate certain things for them. But they need to be full of ideas. They need to connect with people. They need to delegate. They need to be a leader. They need to problem solve, most importantly. So I think, like, giving our kids the opportunity to have the socialization, that's what's gonna set them apart more than just remembering a bunch of facts.
Ugh, I completely agree. If you guys are watching on YouTube, I'm laughing over
You're
here when she said
nodding.
1783. It's insane because I remember I was also, yeah, very fear driven and that came from my upbringing and my parents, but I was like, okay, this test matters and getting an A matters, and if I even remember it afterwards, that doesn't really matter. It's just about the test. It's just about my grade. That's what
Right.
matters.
Yeah.
Ask me something about history in 1783, like, I have no fucking clue.
Mhm, mhm.
But
And
what
that's like 10 years of our life in
I
that
know.
building, and not s I love education for sure,
Yeah.
but it's like what like, I hear some of the newer types of schools that are coming out now, and it's like 10-year-olds are learning how to start an Airbnb or something. It's like real life skills is
Yeah.
what our kids sh we should be giving our kids to, like, set them up for success.
No, I love that. I was just looking it up because I'm still have time with my daughter, but I remember you and I talked about homeschooling and I was just so amazed by that because I've considered it, but I was a little it felt a little daunting to me because I was like, "Ooh, that's time, that's effort." It's also I feel like a responsibility on me because I don't wanna put her in a normal school because I don't want her to have the same experience that I had with, again, testing matters above all else, and you're in this room, and the teacher is almost like an authoritarian, and you have to
Yes.
listen, and it's the whole dynamic of school, right? Forget what you're even studying and learning, it's more of, like, even how the desks are positioned, and I will never forget some of my teachers, it was, like, 8th, ninth grade, they'd have like popsicle sticks and everyone had a name on this popsicle stick and it was like random, like by choice. Katya, what is the answer to blah blah blah, and it
Oh,
was
just
like,
keeping you in stress and
oh
fear
my
for
God,
no
like
reason.
immediately my body would tense up. And then I always believed I was the problem. Like I had social anxiety. It's like, no, you were in an environment that actually failed you, right? Like
Yeah.
you're not the problem. The system is the problem. That was so healing for me. And so I'm looking at homeschooling or even like a hybrid approach, or you
Yeah,
just
like a micro school or something.
yeah, or there's like an academy here. I think it's in Tampa. I don't know the name off the top of my head, but even the way they have the desks, it's like in a circle.
Mhm.
And it's much more like group activity learning outside, and I'm like, that's so interesting. I would much rather put my daughter in something like that.
For
Um,
sure. That's more like collaborative, and, like, if she gets a job or whatever business one day, that she's gonna be working collaboratively with other people. It's not gonna be at a desk staring at the wall, like
staring out the window like you just said. I
Yeah,
wish I was
yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
What would you say is like the hardest part of homeschooling your kids? If you had to say there was just something that was hard or is hard, what would you say that is?
Yeah, that's such a good question, and I think, like, I'll share my experience, but I think everyone's different because every parent is different and every child is different. So at the beginning, when I first started, the hardest part was even just figuring out, like, what do I teach them? What are the curriculums? How do I make sure that they're on par with the grade level or exceeding the grade level that they need to be at? So at the beginning, the hardest part was just research, getting it all together. And then now my kids are at different ages. So one of my kids loves homeschooling. He asks for homeschooling. Can we do homeschooling? He'll sit for hours and do it. Yesterday, I showed him a new math app and he just sat and did it for an hour. But my other one is just not that interested, and it's okay. He's young, he's got lots of time, he's got lots of energy, so he just wants to run around. So I want him to learn the things, but I don't want to pressure it so much that I take away his level of learning. So that's like what my current challenge is. It's like making sure that he's getting the information without, being like authoritarian
Mhm.
about it. And so what I do as a workaround is I think about like, hey, what do we want to learn? And then I try to turn it into a game.
Got it. I
Yeah.
love that.
And, I'm so grateful that I learned so much about the subconscious mind over the years because I bring a lot of it into teaching. And one thing I know is that they're little walking subconscious minds. And what I know is a subconscious mind learns through repetition. So if something hasn't clicked, it's not like it's never going to click. I just need to give it more repetitions. So, like, we'll listen to songs on the topic that we're learning, like in the car, or turn it into games, or I love a flip chart. So I put things on flip charts and put them up on the wall. So it's like I know it's going in, and sometimes I'll try to teach something and I won't be sure if he's getting it. All of a sudden it clicks. Or like I don't know much Spanish, but my boys are in Spanish lessons. And so my youngest one has been singing like the little Spanish songs. And then yesterday he said two things to me that I'm like, I don't know what you just said.
I love
It's
that.
going in. They learn so quick.
You're gonna have to learn
Yeah.
some Spanish, Reese.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because we used to go to a class. I used to drive them to a class, and so I would actually learn it all with them, which was great. But now we have a new great tutor who comes to our house. And so I'm like, this is great. Like I can actually get a little bit of work done or clean up or whatever while they're doing it. So I haven't been paying attention and I'm like, yeah, I'm like falling behind. I need to start listening in while they're in their training.
You gotta keep up, girl.
Yeah,
4
yeah,
and
yeah.
5.
Yeah, exactly.
I love being a mom. I love the business. It's my firstborn, as I always say, but once I became a mom, I'm like, "Oh shit, like this is what I want to focus on and do, and I want to be around her 24/7." But there was a huge identity shift for me as well when I first had her because I was very like admittedly hyper masculine, ambitious, like go, 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 go. And I think I needed to be a version of that to get myself to a place of where I am today. But
Mhm,
as soon as I had her, I realized that no, that will no longer serve me. Did you
mhm.
have an experience like that when you had your first child? In terms of like an identity death or identity shift, like was there a part of you that you realized, oh, I need to let this version go in order to step into this next version or role?
Yeah, for sure. It's funny because I had been around a lot of kids and babies. I was a nanny for a bit. My younger brother is like 11 years younger than me. So I knew how much time and attention it takes around, having a newborn. Because I know some people are like, I just had a baby and I've never been around babies. I didn't realize like there's diaper changes and whatever. So I knew that there'd be that much attention, but it's still I think I still was in like a boss babe era. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna have my baby and then I'm gonna take what did I say? Like 2 weeks or a month or something. I'm gonna have my baby. I'm gonna take 2 weeks or my month or whatever I did. And then I'm gonna hop back into it. And yeah, my first, like I love him and he's just actually both of them are like very, very, very attached to me. And I didn't realize, like, how heartbreaking it is to, like, say, like, "Oh, sorry, baby, like, I'm walking into a meeting or I'm walking into a call." So, yeah, that totally caught me off guard because 'cause I'm like, "Oh, it's like the baby, like, has the milk or I'll feed it," and then I just go do my thing, and it was even though I was aware, I still wasn't totally prepared for that. So that was
Yeah.
huge. And I think, like, with anything with a mom, I just kind of worked through like, I can't say, like, "Oh, I had the perfect solution." Like, it's like some days I said, "I'm not doing this call," or some days I breastfed my baby while I was on a call. Or some days I said, like, "Sorry, baby, you have to hang out with daddy for a bit or babysitter for a bit while I do this." So, I can't say I had, like, the perfect solution. It was just, like, I took it day by day and just tried to do my best day by day as it came.
Yeah. I'm laughing over here again because when you said like, "Okay, I'm just gonna like have a baby and 2 weeks, month later, just go back to normal." I had the same experience. I built out my own maternity leave 4 months, which I thought was like 4 months. Okay. Like
Yeah.
that's a quite a bit of time. And then yeah, month 3 came and I'm like, I'm not ready. Like I'm still trying to figure this whole mom thing out.
Yeah.
And so I realized this little human is going to need me much longer than 4 months, and I think that's part of, like, I say, a grieving process that I needed to have to, yeah, kinda retire the boss babe era and step into this motherhood era, but it was, like, the ultimate up level. I don't mean that in a negative way, like, I'm glad I dropped the boss babe, you know, era so that I could be even, like, better and more mature and give less fucks as a
Mhm.
mom. Do you feel the
Yeah.
same? Like, you just have this newfound confidence? Not that you weren't confident before, but it's like a whole whole 'nother level. It's hard to describe.
Yeah, it's hard to describe, and I think as a mom, you're always just gonna put your babies first, like, you just have this fierceness, this protectiveness of, like, their life, their future, that's what matters the most. If it's not bringing me peace or supporting them, it's not part of my life.
Yeah, I love that. I remember at, the panel that you were a part of, we talked about kids and showing them online.
Mhm.
And I think at that time, you were still torn of like, yeah, I mean, they're number 1.
Yeah.
But I still have to show up online, and so it's like this dance of how much do I share about my motherhood journey, if you wanna talk like personal brand, my kids, am I showing faces or not? Where do you sit with that now?
Yeah, so right now, I am not showing their faces online. I think when I saw you at the, mastermind, I hadn't showed
Mhm.
their faces online for a while, but when they were little, I didn't have any consciousness of that, so I was like, "Here's me, here's my baby, here's what we're doing, da, 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 da." And just over the years, I've had a few, like, instances that I'm like, I don't know even though I imagine when I post online that it's just, like, my group of girlfriends and, like, my dream clients, literally anyone can look at your stuff online. And so the more my awareness raised around that, the more I realized like, no, I actually don't want to post them online. So I stopped doing that. Because I had in the past, like, uh, someone send me a death threat, and it's like, okay, they decided to send that to, it wasn't about my kids. It was about something else, but it's like, that if I'm showing my kids, I'm making them vulnerable to that. I had in the past someone try to break into my house. It's like there's so many different things where, originally, like when I first started, I showed everything online and it was like, I'm traveling, like I'm leaving my house empty and I'm going to Paris. I'm like, you know what I mean? It's like all these things that we just do without even thinking about it, right? It's like, I live in this city and da, 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 and we just don't think about like, even though 99% of people are good, there's still some people out there that aren't. And so, yeah, I'm just being more conscientious of it. I'm in a place where I don't show my kids online. I don't talk about like their breakdowns or meltdowns or whatever because I also want to respect their privacy. And it's funny because a couple months ago, one of my kids was actually like, I want to start a YouTube channel. I'm literally like, what do I do when I'm like, I haven't been showing them online, but now they want to start when like, do I stop them or do I support them? So it's like no mom before this age has ever had to navigate this type of thing. So it's so tricky to know what's right. And if somebody else is posting their kids online, I'm not judging, but for me and, the things that I've gone through, I feel like this decision feels aligned for me, at least right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel the same way in terms of when I first had her, I was so excited and I was like, "Here's my baby."
Yeah. Take a
I
look,
was
everyone.
oh my gosh, like a very because I also used to do more so like wellness blogging and stuff, more like lifestyle brand before I got into coaching. So I was actually very used to just sharing everything. And
Yeah.
so I think also going through pregnancy and delivery, and, I do have a lot of women that follow me. It's like, yeah, I just wanted to share that with them. But um, there have been a few things that have also happened, not as intense as yours in terms of death threats or breaking into my home. It's the comments and
Mm,
the online cyber bullying where I'm like, I look at it differently now because I can handle it for the most part. But now I see it almost like in her eyes, in her lens, and when she gets to an age of curiosity and starts asking like, "What does that mean?" or whatever, it's like, "Ooh, I'm gonna have to explain that to her." Like, this
yeah.
man thinks that your mom is only successful because he thinks she has an OnlyFans account. Like, how the fuck?
Yeah, and that's just opening a whole rabbit hole of conversation.
Right?
Yeah,
And
that you
so
don't
it's
wanna
like
get into.
that's what mom is dealing with.
Yeah,
Let alone what if I showed her online more so
and someone said something weird, like
I
yeah.
drew it back and yeah. So I was like, I don't want to open her or expose her to that. But to your point, at some point, she's also going to want to start a YouTube channel or an Instagram account. And I think then it's like, we have to have that conversation around negative comments and where does that come from? Why does someone feel like they can do this? What's going on within them? How this has nothing to do with you? Like that's a very evolved 10 years old plus where they can actually register what you're saying to them.
Mhm,
I
for
think
sure.
everything else is premature.
For sure. And I feel like, our kids are going to become teenagers and one day adults, and we're not going to be able to protect them from everything, unfortunately. But for this like really special age, especially from 0 to 7, when their subconscious mind is wide open, we have the opportunity to. So yeah.
Yeah. Are you ever afraid of because they're in this ripe age and knowing subconscious reprogramming and doing your work, are you ever afraid of like saying something wrong, moving a wrong way? So, like, I don't know, that it would impact them in a negative way, like to kind
Yeah.
of watch yourself. You know what I
For
mean?
sure. Well, like what we were talking about before, when I would have a meeting or have to do this or that, I'm like literally my brain is like, I'm leaving for this meeting and like I'm gonna give them abandonment issues.
I think the
Which like
same.
yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And yeah, I try to be very careful about how I talk to them or like words that I use because I don't want it to be perceived in a negative way, or I want them to be able to kind of like choose their identity. I have a friend or family member who growing up, her parents said, "You're the funny one. You're the funny one." And so she started to associate as I'm the funny one. And what she told me would happen is she'd be like out telling an embarrassing story about herself. And she'd be like, "Why am I putting myself in this situation?" And it's because she was living up to the identity of I'm the funny one. So I try to be very careful about like how I help them form their identity so it's something that they'll want. Yeah. But like there's so much to think about and consider.
That's something that I am aware of now. So to your point, I'm so, so happy and grateful that I have done the work and continue to do the work on myself to be hyper aware of the subconscious and how it all works with her at the ripe age of 15 months. But
Yeah.
but
It's important.
something like saying no, right? Like
Yeah.
I actually watched my dad, bless his heart, he doesn't know, but he says no to her. And it just feels intuitively like,
Like
no,
too
we
firm.
we shouldn't say that, It even goes like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
So I'm like, "Hey, Dad, maybe we just start saying like, hey, we don't do that." Because I
Yeah.
think at a certain age, she's going to ask why, and then we can explain like, well, you don't run in the middle of the road because there's this risk involved, Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm trying to think of all the ways, but little things like that I've already noticed, and I get super protective too. I'm like, I had to call my dad out a few times because, she's eating all the food. She's 15 months and she's like eating her dinner. And then he even said, like, oh, like, be careful. You don't want to eat too much as a joke. But I'm like, Dad, we're
Yeah.
not going to continue that. Like, what are
Yeah.
you doing? Have
Yeah.
you
We
had
don't need
experiences?
body image issues under 2 years old.
What? Like, you know how much
Yeah.
unlearning I had to do over here? Like, we're
Yeah.
not gonna do that with her.
Yeah.
How do you protect, if you can, with people like family members, friends? Like, do you call them out or do you handle it later? How do you navigate that?
Yeah, I just use like a uh
Okay.
calm but firm tone of
Mhm.
like, "Oh, we prefer to say it like this, we prefer to say it like that." So I think
Mm,
like our children are looking to us to protect them. So if we're not protecting them, who is? And also to like if we're conceding to make somebody else comfortable, we're teaching them not from what we're saying, but how we're modeling to them. So I think it's okay. Like I'm not gonna break out and be like, "Rah, rah, rah, rah," but I think, like, communicating in a confident tone lets them know that they can communicate when they're uncomfortable in a
yeah,
confident tone as well. They don't just have to suck it up.
I love that. Very well said. Okay, I have one last question for you. I know we're running low on time here. I always think of, well, people like you too, just super successful. You have yes supply, you have a following. People see sometimes that end result, right? Like the
Mhm.
version that you are today. If you had to tell someone, I work with early and aspiring coaches who are just now getting into the coaching industry, and obviously it's a different landscape than when you and I had started. What would you wanna tell that woman who's getting started now? Because you weren't always here. You weren't like, you also had a moment where you started, right? At
For
0,
sure.
let's say. What
Yeah.
would you tell her? What advice would you give her if she was just starting here today?
Mhm. I would say don't look to follow the rules because I think what happens is people get into business because they're like, I want to do my own thing. I want to have freedom. I want to be creative. And then in moments where you feel insecure or you don't know the next step, you look for like, what is this guru saying to do? What is this? And then if you listen to all the advice, you're going to have a laundry list of like, okay, well, webinars are dead and YouTube is dead, and I need to have this and I need to have that. And it's all of these shoulds and it's all of these rules that were placed on you just because that's what your algorithm decided to show you. And that can become overwhelming and time consuming and daunting. And you might just should on yourself and follow a path of things that you didn't even want to do because you think that you should do them. And it's so funny because really the landscape is changing so much. There is no one rule. Someone might suck at webinars and they are dead to them. And someone might be amazing at webinars and that's how they sign all their high ticket clients. So what I encourage my clients to do and what I encourage everyone to do is start with the end in mind. Ask yourself the yes apply question. Ask yourself, what would I ask for if I knew the answer was going to be yes? And get clear on that vision and then reverse engineer it to where you are now. Because you might find, oh my gosh, I can get to this end result that I want. And I don't need to do this laundry list of 60 things. I could do the simplest things that help me get the furthest with the most ease and the most peace and the most fun and the most alignment to who I really am. And it's okay to do things differently from other people that you've seen them, because if you do them with the right energy and the right intention and the right conviction, you're going to reach the end result anyway.
Yeah. Solid advice. And I lied because now you just brought me to another last question.
Okay.
Because it is all about, a lot of it is trusting your own intuition and what lights you up. And do you like podcasting over YouTube? Even though maybe someone tells you, go on YouTube, it's booming. It's like, but I don't even like YouTube. I like podcasting.
Exactly. Yeah.
When do you use your discernment? Well, I guess you always use your discernment, but like for the early and aspiring coach, when do they know that they should invest into mentorship? Like what would be the reason? Because a lot of us talk about listen to your own gut and do what lights you up. And if you like podcasting over YouTube, do that. So at what point do they listen to that? But then also do they know, you know what, I need to hire someone. I need a
Yeah.
mentor.
So I need to like put a chart on this, but so you do need to know what your end result is so that you kind of know the path that you would need to get there, right? And then you need to know once you start taking action, even if it's the first action, like registering your business, once you start taking action, you need to be aware, is the thing that's holding me back lack of knowledge, or is the thing that's holding me back lack of the belief or the emotion? So if it's the lack of the belief or the emotion and you can't move through it on your own, then that's where it's so empowering to have a mindset coach or, someone who can help you with your subconscious mind to help you move through that so that you can take the steps that you already know to do. So if you're saying to yourself, I know exactly what I need to do, but every time I go to do it, I don't because of this emotion. I don't know how to get through this emotion. Get yourself a mindset coach. It'll save you so much time and energy. And then on the flip side of that, if you're like, I believe in myself, I'm taking all the actions, I'm motivated, but I don't know what to do, or I'm doing all these things and I'm running around in a circle, then look for someone who has achieved what you want to do and hire them to show you the steps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I
But
love that.
don't just hire someone because you got an email and the countdown timer is almost at 0 and you have FOMO. Make sure that it's like, okay, in order for me to get to where I want to be, I need this skill set or I need this belief, and then hire the person who can fill it in. And I think that's where a lot of people don't have a great experience in coaching because they need the strategy and then they hire a mindset coach, right? So they might see a mindset coach that's made millions of dollars. And so they say, oh my gosh, let me hire that mindset coach.
Mhm.
And then they get in and they're like, where's the strategy? But the mindset coach never said that they were going to help you with the strategy. So you need to
Mhm.
either get a course, ask ChatGPT, or hire the person who's going to teach strategy if you have the mindset, and vice versa.
Yeah. I love that. It reminds me so much of my story because when I first started into coaching, I hired a life coach, so more mindset focused because I was going through an identity crisis. I was working in the tech industry, but I really wanted to do coaching and I was like, how do I do this? So
Yeah.
she really helped with that. But then I didn't have strategy in terms of building my own. So I created a 6-week program of $600, and I was just very motivated and hungry. And I put myself out there and I got 10 girls to sign up. And I was like,
Amazing.
this is amazing.
Yeah.
But the money, I was like, this is cute, but it's not going to replace my salary. So, how do
Right.
I make more money? And then, I put it out in the universe. And then I found my business coach online. My mom actually sent me a podcast episode of his. But anyways, I hired him $7,500 for a 3-month group coaching program, and it saved me so much time because I could have probably just kept throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what stuck with my 6-week, $600 program, but I wanted to speed up time. And so
Mhm.
when he showed me the strategy of maybe 6-month or a year-long containers and high ticket coaching, then it's like, oh, it sped up the time for me to replace my salary so that I could leave and do this and go all in. So,
Exactly.
yeah, sound advice. So, anyone listening and you're considering coaching or considering investing, that's such good advice in terms of the mindset, the emotion that you're moving through, and or the strategy and just lack of knowledge. Reese, I could talk to you forever. We might have to do a part two of
True.
this because
Let's
I
do
have
it.
all the questions. For right now, where can people find you? What are you selling? How could people get into your world? Give us all the information.
Yeah. So if you're listening and you know you want to become a mindset coach, you want to help people reprogram your subconscious mind, that's where the Yes Supply method can help you. So we teach you subconscious reprogramming tools so that you can sell high ticket services and high ticket coaching and help your clients actually transform because they get the results that they want. So you can join and learn more at yessupply.co, or you can find me on Instagram at Yes Supply.
Yay. All right. Thank you so much. And let us know if you guys want a part two of this series, and we'll have Reese come back.
Thanks for
Thank you so
having
much for
me.
being here.